Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Hello and welcome. Today, I've got with me someone who's absolutely brilliant at what he does. It's Riccardo Sai, and I'm sure I could have pronounced that better. But welcome to the podcast, Riccardo, and yeah, good to have you here.
Thank you, Joe, for inviting me. It's a real pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and when you watch, I know you're listening to the podcast now. The fact is that what Riccardo does with camera is brilliant, and he's also cleverly, as we're on video, cleverly made himself in black and white. So when you get the chance to watch this as well, then you'll see how magic is created. So let's get straight into it, because your introduction is going to be your story, so to speak. So I know we had a discussion about this before we started, because a lot of the time I'm interviewing veterans, i.e. ex-military from around the world. And the fact is, though, that the purpose of this podcast is to bring together entrepreneurs and veterans to talk about various stuff so it's helpful. Does that make sense? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good. So, absolutely. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your story before you got into media, the film industry, please.
So yeah, it's quite an interesting story, because I always been doing this. I mean, of course, I haven't been doing it professionally, apart from the past, say, 20 years of my life. But it's a passion that I had for very early years of my life, really, because I always had a passion for stories and images and sounds. So I used to play clarinet when I was younger. I used to paint. I used to create storybooks and comics, and I used to make my first short films as well when I was quite young, when I was a teenager, when I was 18. And then that passion grew, and I went to university to study film and art, and that brought me to the UK, where I went to the London Film School, where I studied film and photography. Wow. And the rest is history, as they say. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, the rest is history. I mean, and we're going to go to that history, actually. So when you left university at the London Arts School, what was your first opportunity to get into film, and how did you do it?
It was the London Film School. It's because so that was in London. I think my probably biggest chance that I had, where I really understood that I loved telling story through visuals, it was when I was at university back in Bologna, actually. So more than 2 decades ago, where we had the opportunity. So I was part of a screenwriting course with a brilliant teacher, and we had the opportunity to have some support for the university. And at that time, we used to have films used to be made with film, not digitally. Actually, we used to have the first digital cameras, in fact. And Bologna was actually quite active in terms of independent productions, music videos, commercials, and feature films, actually. But we had the opportunity to have this support from the university. We had a few stock, a few rolls of a Super 16 film, and we produced the first a feature film, basically. So, and I was one of the producers of the film. I think it wasn't at all a professional experience, but we had quite a few named actors, and it was a great experience. Out of that, a lot of people decided not to continue because, to be frank, it's very difficult to be a professional filmmaker.
Yeah.
But a few others ended up becoming actually quite successful screenwriters, producers, directors, etc. And after that, I eventually moved to the UK to specialize in film. I studied, and then I started to work as a mailing film and photography as well. So I think that was probably the beginning of when I really understood that, first of all, to make films, it's the parallel with war actually is quite similar, because making films, it's you have an army of people, and you need to have a certain discipline. You need to have a general. In this case, is the director, the producer, the first assistant director. So I like that. I like the fact that it was a very orchestrated operation, and everybody had he or her own place, and it was of course, there were a lot of obstacles, and we learned it the hard way. You have to face atmospheric conditions. You have to face the fact that the actors might not feel well on the day. All sorts of different obstacles. But that's the beauty of making film, and to me, that's also the biggest. It has been for me, every time I was on a film set, an incredible and transformative experience as well, in terms of really somehow like looking inside myself and finding the resources to come up with the different solutions, because you can't avoid the obstacles. The only difference is that how you tackle these obstacles, how you find a way not to delete those obstacles, but and not to overcome, but what kind of shortcuts can you find to still produce a good film, despite the fact that you have so many things happening that somehow they're there to stop you, to create something beautiful. And that to me is a great life. It's a great life lessons for me. It's always been a great life lessons, because making creative projects like that on a bigger scale, it's an opportunity to really to understand something about you, understand something about how it is working with other people with the same purpose, which is producing a film. And that to me has always been a very fascinating aspect of what I did. And photography, it is similar in many different ways. But in films, there's more money, there's more expectations, there's more people involved. So it's a bigger challenge. The challenges are bigger.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And yes, so from the London Film School, what made you want to go to that particular establishment? What drew you to the UK?
Sorry, say that again.
What brought you to the UK? What made you want to attend the London Film School?
Oh yeah, well, I just wanted to learn how to tell films, how to tell story through films, because you can. The big difference between the UK and Italy is that the education system in Italy is very theoretical. So I studied a lot about the art of the history of art, history of theatre. So I studied Shakespeare for a couple of years, which was great. But at the same time, I wanted to learn how to produce a film. What's the language of creating a story using images and sounds. So I always I kind of knew how to do it in a way, because I've always been doing that for a number of years, but I just wanted to learn more about that. And so that's the reason why I came to the UK. And also for me, coming to another country, it was a great opportunity to practice more with another language. And I always liked confronting myself with other cultures. And London for me was great, because you get to know so many different people. And still now, after 20 years, I find it a very exciting city, and very with a lot of I like the speed of how you can meet new people and develop new friendships and working relationships.
Yeah.
So that was
yeah. And by the way, your English is excellent, far better than my foreign languages, command of any foreign language. So
I didn't tell you, but I'm using artificial intelligence to change my accent.
Right, okay. Yeah, so that's very clever, because your lips are syncing with exactly what you say as well. So that must be
my voice is different.
That must be some program, that. So the thing is, I've looked at your profile, Riccardo, and it is impressive. You've worked with people like Microsoft, Barracuda, Nike, Timberland, Barclaycard, British Summertime Festival, British Gas. I mean, it just goes on and on. B&Q, Motorsports, Kaspersky, Waitrose. What's the secret of your success? Because I mean, you must have some secrets to get with that sort of lineup.
Well, I wish there was a formula. So for me, I always valued relationships and connections with people. So for me, that has always been a major drive in any part of my life, really. I always liked connecting with people, and also looking beyond the fact that people potentially could give me work. So I've always been very interested in authentic connection with people. So and I think it could be my culture as well. It could be my personality. I don't know, but I find it quite easy to really connect with people and empathize with people. So for me, I always seek to meet people that I can do something together. We can learn from each other, and then work comes after that. So for me, that's always been a major drive, and I think I think that's what is life about, really, connecting with people and just really really valuing the fact that we all have different skills, we all have different things to offer, and so yeah, I don't know if that's really my secret, but it's definitely something that it really, whenever I was doing a project, I was the thing that I was more interested on is really the fact that I was working with people that I knew already, but also new people. And there's something quite exciting. There's like a buzz when you're meeting new people, you're kind of testing each other. You don't know exactly how that person would react. So what happens if there's a problem? Will they freak out or not? So in a way, being there and kind of dealing with those dynamics, I always find it really interesting in a way. And listening to me has always been one of my key skills. I kind of learned how to talk, but hopefully I got to a good level now. But I think my one of my strengths is really kind of listening, and so yeah. And I think job after job, it's a job led to the next one. I think one of the things also that in terms of what you asked me as well. So one of the secrets for me is always think about quality. So don't worry about the budget. Think about, just try to always deliver something that you're proud of from the beginning until the end. Sometimes, it's not possible 100%. So sometimes I had to let go of some projects and say, well, this is as much as I could do. Yeah. And that's okay. It's beyond my control. The client wants to have that change in the editing. They want to change the color. They want to have a different music. That's okay, So I learned. It took me a few years to understand that, but I think, So really thinking about quality. It's always been a problem, and there's a saying also in the industry saying that you're never as good as the last project that you've done. So forget about all the other projects that you've done. So people will look at your last projects and can you say that that project is really representative of who you are and what you're capable of? If not, it's a shame, because that project might lead you to other projects, to, you know, and possibly to recurrent jobs with the same clients, or perhaps so. And that's, you know, the word of mouth is quite important in my industry as well. So
yeah, and that's a great point, because that just reminded me of when I was a DJ. The crowds normally remember, if they don't at the beginning, the first tune you play and the last tune. The bit in between, so long as the bit in between's okay, the last one is what they've got the memory of. So that's a great point, that. Yeah, well done. So what I'm getting from you really, Riccardo, is that quality is important for the secret of your success. I imagine you just do this automatically. Seems to me you become completely immersed in understanding, appreciating, and becoming skilled in what you do to make sure that you can deliver the best. And maybe you don't get it right all the time. It's just that you get it right most of the time, because done's better than perfect sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose it's not been a bed of roses for you, has it? And maybe some things may have gone wrong, like you alluded to. So how do you deal with failure?
Yeah, that's a tough one. How do you deal with failure? I think I'm going back to what I was saying before about connections. I think you can't. I think that one of the key for me to not necessarily to avoid failure, but perhaps to make sure that you can overcome failure in a more positive way, I think for me is to have a support group, to working with people that you like and that you appreciate. I think, and we're kind of going back to what I was saying before about the power of connections, and just really having like a team with you all the time that you can support, you can guide, but also that they can support you whenever you need to. And so I discovered that recently, because I became quite interested in sustainability and climate change, and I learned really how important is actually to meet people and to buddy up with people that, first of all, they're driven by the same mission, by the same purpose. And that to me is crucial. People really have to be aligned with what you're trying to do. And that's, you know, going back to the metaphor of filmmaking, if you don't have a director who know what they're doing, and that's one of the things, you know, that all the actors and the crew are doing on the first few days of any kind of film production, they're challenging the director, especially if they don't know him or her. So does he know what he wants? And so a lot of time you have to pretend that you know what you want, but you don't know what you want really. So it's kind of it's a bit of a chicken and egg type of story. But you have to give the impression, and sometimes it's okay. You don't perhaps know exactly where you're going, but you have a sense of direction, and that's what is the director's role about. So to me, it's important to have that kind of a sense of direction, that purpose, but also having that support group of people that are working alongside. I always been quite open in terms of relationship that I have with colleagues and people working with me. So I never been, you know, when I make films, I've never been too bossy. I mean, of course, you know, there are times where you have to take a decision, and I had to take the decision, and that's it. There's no time to argue or to discuss, but I always like to listen to other people, because at the end of the day, you know, making a film is like an orchestra. You have the director of the orchestra, but each of the individuals that has something to offer. And they need to be, and they need to have the freedom to express themselves. A director of photography, if you control, or cameraman, if you control too much what they're doing, they end up like doing something that and not really putting the passion in what they're doing, because I'm just doing this because the director tells me exactly what to do. So so I think it's important to have that kind of guidance as well, but also leave freedom to the people that are working with you as well. Freedom to express themselves and to put their own personal mark in whatever project you're doing. So I think, yeah, so I don't know if that answering your question, but it's a combination of direction, purpose, and teamwork, I would say.
Have you ever wondered what is going to happen to all your knowledge, wisdom, and skills when you die? Yeah, me too. That is exactly the reason why I created joeteam.com, so I can leave a legacy for my children and for other successful people who are just like you. For less than 40 pence per day, you get access to valuable business and life resources gained from my over 37 years in business and 15 years in the military. These world-class resources are designed to help you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations you deserve. So visit joeteams.com now to find out more. That's joeteams.com, joeteams.com to find out more.
And that's brilliant, and I appreciate and I understand where you're coming from. Like, filming is like a battle scenario. You've got the generals and you've got the boots on the ground, and you know, you're all moving towards the same purpose. And also an orchestra, because in an orchestra you've got a woodwind, strings, percussion, brass, all of that. From my time playing the violin, I remember that exactly. And so what, on a set, a film set, how big or how small can they range from when you're filming and directing?
Oh, there's no really limit, really. I mean, the type of films and sets I've worked on, they've been like medium size, I would say. Most of the projects that I do, they're like small to medium size, and I work mainly on short form rather than feature film. I've done one feature films, but mainly short form. So it's but at the same time, even when you're doing a 30-second advert, you can have a massive crew. So really, there's not really a limit. I think one of the things that is important is really, and I think with the democratization of technology now, a lot of people can produce their own films. They can hold a camera, they can use a phone, etc., etc. What is important is that to understand that what you're holding is a camera, but on a film set, there's so many other people working around that camera. For example, there's so many other people who have their own job that is all unfolding around that camera, for example. So in a way where you can be very creative and more effective in terms of producing the films is the more aware you are of all the processes and all the team that are working. So that way you can break down a film production process into like smaller elements. Because, for example, there's one person on a film set who is called the focus puller. The job of that person is literally making sure that whatever's in front of the camera is on focus. Right. So with the phone, you don't need that because it's automatic. But at the same time, you know, the focus is very, very important also if you're using a phone. So, and where you put the focus, where do you decide that the focus will be, will change the narrative of the film, will add a layer of meaning to the film. So that's why I'm saying that it's very important to understand also, depending on what you're doing, of course, but it's the more you're aware of the process, the more effective you can be in your visual communication.
Now, whilst on that subject, because you've already been giving some tips, you know, there are people, there are veterans who have got fantastic stories to capture, and also there's business entrepreneurs who've got fantastic stories that they want to capture. And I know you do a lot to help. Have you got any sort of tips that you could give them for when they want to make their own film and maybe are starting off? What should they be doing, really?
Well, I think there's different stages. So I would say the first most important question to ask is that why am I doing this film? because making a film is complicated. So you need to understand what's the purpose of this film. Second question to ask is who's going to see this film? Where is going to be shown that film? Of course, it could be YouTube, but even YouTube, you can't expect that YouTube will start pushing your film on millions of users that YouTube has. So you need to think about like a marketing and distribution strategy, even before you start thinking about the film. Or at the same time, not too late. Then in terms of producing the film, that's I'm kind of giving like short tips of like how to do a film. I think it's always good to have a small crew, maybe a couple of people. Like if it's an interview, it's good to have another person who just focuses on lighting and filming, for example, maybe a person doing all the post-production. Equipment is important. Where say that you're doing an interview, because I assume a lot of your veterans might be interested in kind of interview-based type of films. It's very important that the sound is clear. So, and outside, the sound is more difficult to control. So making sure that you are recording whatever video you're doing in a soundproof or sound clean type of environment. That's very important. So also natural light is very good, but it does change. So avoiding like high contrast type of background as well. So if you're shooting an interview against a big window, there's no way that you can contrast or overpower that light coming from outside, because the sun is very powerful, of course. So where you're doing the interview or where you're filming is very, very important. And then the editing. The editing is it's a whole different process. The shorter the better in general. I always if someone is doing an interview, I think it's better to break it down into small chunks, perhaps, like one small audio video bite per questions, for example.
Yeah.
So that way you have, you do like a half an hour interview, and then suddenly you have like maybe 10 mini films that you can use in different ways. That could be an option, but it doesn't have to be. But also, another element that I think is very, very important is writing at the beginning. So that's kind of going back to what I was saying before in terms of why you're doing this film and who you're doing it for. So in a way, having clarity in that is very, very important. So really, why are you doing this film? And just start writing down the synopsis of the film and the structure of the film. So how does the film start? How does the film end? What's happening in between? So that's these are just some general
that's
tips.
Absolutely brilliant, Riccardo, because the other thing you've already mentioned is about having a network, a support group, and a coach and a mentor. How important has that been in your career so far, and how important do you think it is to someone on an ongoing basis
to have that kind of support group?
And a coach or a mentor, someone who can share their wisdom.
Oh, it's I was talking with someone recently who told me that she has like 3 different coaches, right. Which I thought, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I think we all need support in so many different ways, and also it's okay to feel also vulnerable and say, well, I think I'm struggling with this part of the business or part of my private life, and I need help in that. So it could be financial help, it could be like life coaching, it could be business coaching type of support. So there's different ways that we all need different help, and that can come from a professional person, but it could be a friend as well. It could be a family member as well. But I think is in a way expecting all these answers and support from the same person is difficult. That could be in a relationship, for example. But professionally speaking, I think it's important to have really like an army using this metaphor of people that are there to support you and you might not need them straight away, you might need them further down the line, but it's important to invest in that team, I think, because when you need them, you don't have time to interview people, or you don't have time. You need to be very quick and efficient, and that's why investing time in that, I think, is very important.
I thank you so much, and I do recognise that just on the tips on how to make good films, you gave away a few of your good secrets there as well. We could talk for hours on that. So thank you for sharing your knowledge, wisdom, and skill in this short interview. So, do you know? I know you haven't served in the military. We've discussed, though, the values and the skills that people get in the military, like punctuality, teamwork, working under pressure, responsibility, all that sort of the soft skills that probably aren't easily taught. And from what you know of guys who are, that's men and women, who are military or ex-military, how transferable do you think the skills are into civilian life for getting a job, and how valuable do you think it would be to an employer?
I think I'm sure they are. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience in fact, no experience in terms of army and military operations and careers as well. But I think as we touched before, I mean, there's a lot of similarities with the filmmaking process. So I think and I think for me, filmmaking is actually a great life schools in many different ways. So it did help me to really learn how to work in a team, how to work towards a purpose, towards a mission, how to face obstacles, how to transform obstacles into something that has value. It helped me with my self-resilience, helped me to have courage to face new situations with a fresh approach, to have that kind of open-mindedness as well. So I'm sure there's a lot of parallels in that sense. And I think, especially when it comes to veterans, they've been in a situation which most people they've never faced in their life, to be honest. And they've seen, and I remember we had this conversation with you, they've seen things that us humans they've never seen in a situation that perhaps they wish they were not, maybe. So that's wisdom, that's storytelling. And so those stories for me, they are very powerful. They're incredible. So sharing those stories with other people, and there's a value there, I think. And so in a way, on top of the soft skills that we touched on, I think there's also the fact that these people have been through a lot, and kind of sharing what they've learned along the way, in the good way, in the bad way. I think it could be quite empowering for any kind of age, really, but perhaps even for younger people.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So we've gone through your career and life cycle experience in film, and what I'm getting is that you love storytelling, and you think that capturing a story, someone's life, someone's experience, is really powerful. And you've given us some great tips on how to use and bring to life through the camera on how to capture those stories. You think that authentic relationships are really important, and that's been the value of your success, which has also brought you through failure at certain times, having a support group, a coach and a mentor who can say, well, look, maybe this and maybe that, have you thought about this? So that's really important. So in the true spirit of filmmaking, and one of my favorite films ever is Columbo. So in the Columbo style, just one more thing. Could you give me a tip for someone who's leaving the military, someone who's left the military, someone who's in business, who maybe is having a bit of a tough time? what's the one tip that you could give from your experience, your vast experience, that would help them achieve their success?
I think for me is really like really treasuring, as I was saying before, your story. I think the fact that your story has got huge values, not only for yourself but for other people. And I think a lot of time we don't see ourselves as characters in the incredible film that is our life. I think often we don't see ourselves as the protagonist. We see as one of the extras, one of the secondary characters, one of the non-speaking parts, actors in that film. So we're not driving the narrative. And I think so it's almost like, why don't you try writing a film about who you are? What's the film of your story? What's the film of your story until now? And what's the film of your life from now on? What kind of narrative you want to tell? What makes it exciting? So how can you turn that in the next Netflix series or the next Hollywood film? So and I think the bottom line for me is that it's there is an incredible story there. You might not be aware of that, but there is. And I'm not talking about the story of what happened to you, but and how you lived your life, but it's really like the transformation that you went through your life as the hero of your journey, and also what's next for you. So what's the next obstacles? What's the next thing you want to do? You know, just bear in mind that life is a film. So life is a sequence of obstacles, of things happening to you, and it's not important where you get, but it's how you get there that is important.
Wow, that's fantastic. So life is one big film, and yeah, heroes,
In a way.
extras. Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much, Riccardo, for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
JoeTeams.com is a resource I've created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. JoeTeams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit JoeTeams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's JoeTeams.com, JoeTeams, JoeTeams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.